Today's learning target is I can write ratios as fractions in simplest form and decide if two ratios are equivalent.
Today we're going to be talking about ratios. And what a ratio is it's a comparison of two amounts. So here's how this might look. In the Explorer team, if there were 75 boys and 80 girls, we could write a ratio because we have two amounts. So our ratio of boys to girls would be 75 to 80. And we could write the ratio of boys to girls one of three ways. We could write it this way, 75 to 80. We could do it this way, 75, and you put these two dots to 80. Or we could write it as a fraction, like this, 75 to 80. In today's assignment, you're going to be asked to write ratios as fractions in simplest form. So to do that, we'll take a look here at number 1. Number 1 asks us to find the ratio of adults to students. So we're going to look over here in this information, and I see there are 24 adults and 180 students. So like I just mentioned, there are three ways to write ratios. We're going to write them as a fraction here. So as a fraction, adults, I see there are 24 adults. So that's going to be my numerator in the ratio. So it's 24 to the number of students, which I see is 180. So it's 24 to 180. So here's my ratio, but I need to put this in simplest form. And in this chapter, you're going to be able to use a calculator. So that's going to make things a little easier. Now I notice both of these numbers are even. I could divide both these by 2, but I also know that 24 I can divide by 6, and 180 I could divide by 6. So if I do this, 24 divided by 6, okay, I know that equals 4. And mental math, I'm actually able to do that, but if you needed to do it on a calculator. So now I've simplified it. Now I notice I'm still not in simplest form because I can divide both of these numbers by the same number. I can divide both of these by 2. All right, so 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. All right, now I'm in simplest form. So the answer for this one would be 2 to 15.
Today we're also going to be determining or deciding whether ratios are equivalent. Okay, equivalent, remember, means equal. Another word you might see that means the same as equivalent is proportional. So basically, if you see either of these words, are they equivalent or proportional, it means are they equal. The easiest way to compare ratios is to write them as fractions. Once I write them as fractions, I'm going to show you two ways that you could solve them. The first way in this problem would be to look at our denominators and to see, can we get these denominators the same by multiplying by anything? And I see that if I times this one by 2, and remember if I do it to the denominator, I have to do it to the numerator, I would get 12 over 20. Okay, so this fraction is equivalent or equal to this one because I just made the numerator and denominator 2 times bigger. And I see that that's the same as the other one. So yes, these are equivalent, so I would put an equal sign there. Now the other way I could do it, which I'll show you down here, is to use that butterfly method that we talked about earlier. So where I multiply 12 times 10, and remember I have to put it above here, it gives me 120. And do the same thing 60 times 20, and that also gives me 120. So when those two are equal, I know that the two ratios are proportional or equivalent. If I look over here at this one, again, the first thing I'm going to do is write these ratios as fractions. The key when writing these is to make sure the first number goes on top. Okay, so the first number here goes on top of the ratio. One thing to remember when writing the ratios is you want to make sure the first number in your ratio is the numerator when you write it as a fraction. And now that I've written these, I can compare them. Now I notice my denominators aren't going to work as well as they did over here, where I can't times 7 by anything to get 15 or 15 by anything to get 7. I could times both of these by 15 and times both these by 7, but instead I'm going to use the butterfly method for this one because that looks like it's going to be easy. So I see that's going to be 70 here, and this is going to be 30 here. So these are not proportional, so here's how I would write that. So if you use the butterfly method, make sure you rewrite it underneath there, and then that little equal sign with the slash through it, that's how I show they're not equal or not proportional.